Hi, my name's Colleen, and I'm an outreach educator with Muse Knoxville. Together we're going to explore some of the lessons we bring into your classroom so you can do them at home with us. Today I'm back with more Float Your Boat. In Float Your Boat, you become an engineer, learning how to design, create, and test your very own boat. Last time we explored and tested why some things float and some things sink. Why was that? Remember, density plays a big part. Density describes how much space an object takes up, its volume, compared to the amount of matter in that object, its mass. Remember, if something is more dense than water, it will sink, and if something is less dense than water, it will float. Today, I want to add a new word to our vocabulary: buoyancy. Buoyancy comes from the Spanish word for float and was discovered by Archimedes, an ancient Greek mathematician. Archimedes discovered that an object will float if the weight of the object in the water is less than the weight of the water being displaced or pushed out of the way to make room for the object. Today I want to try another experiment that will give us background knowledge for designing our boats. Instead of using many different objects to see what can float or sink, I want to use one: Play-Doh. If you have Play-Doh, Model Magic, or clay at home, join me. I have 4 balls of Play-Doh that have the same mass. Mine are all 5 grams, and a bin of water. I want to try changing the volume or shape of the Play-Doh to see which shapes float and which shapes sink. Again, we are changing the Play-Doh's volume without changing its mass. Let's see how that affects the buoyancy of our Play-Doh. I'm going to change the shape of my Play-Doh now. You can make your Play-Doh any shape you want to. These are just the shapes that I'm using. I'm going to leave 1 ball of Play-Doh as it is. For my next ball of Play-Doh, I want to flatten it out like a pancake and keep it in a circular shape, like this. For my next one, I think I'm going to flatten it out a lot and use the table to help me, spreading out my Play-Doh, and I'm going to pinch up the sides, kind of remind me of a boat shape as well. Here we go. I think my next shape I'll do the exact same thing, but maybe make it in the shape of a triangle as well. Then I'll be ready to put my shapes in the water to test and see which shapes will float and which shapes will sink. I'll see you in a second. I now have my 4 shapes of Play-Doh laid out before me. Again, I have a Play-Doh ball, my Play-Doh in the shape of a pancake, a Play-Doh with the edges lifted up, and it's in the shape of a square, and the same but as a triangle. Next, I'm going to test them in my bucket of water to see which shapes float and which shapes sink. Remember, they're all the same mass, I've just changed the volume. Let's make some predictions. Which shapes do you predict will sink and which shapes do you predict will float? I predict that my ball of Play-Doh will sink because it reminds me of the rock that sank last week when we were exploring household items. My other shapes I predict will float because they remind me of the popsicle stick that floated last week. It seems like they're all spread out over a larger area, just like my popsicle stick. Now it's time for us to test. I'll take each of my shapes and I'll put them in the water and we'll see what happens. Will they float or will they sink? Do this with me. Let's start with my ball. The ball sank. Let's try the one in the shape of a pancake. It sank as well. Ooh, let's try my square. It's floating. Let's try the triangle next. It's floating as well. All the Play-Doh, the water being displaced is the same because the mass of the Play-Doh is the same. But the shapes that are floating have a greater volume or space they're taking up. This means the mass of the Play-Doh is being spread across a greater area along with the water being displaced, allowing these shapes to float. I know I'll remember my square and triangle shapes when it comes time to creating my boats. I can't wait for you to share with us all of your tests and your aha moments with Muse Knoxville. I'll see you next time.